Good morning and afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's session, The Secret of Effective Leadership. My name is Max Smith. I'm with 501c Services. As many of you all know, we are a full-service unemployment outsourcing company. We also provide HR consulting to nonprofits, and we serve more than 3,000 nonprofits around the nation. Many of you all on the call with us today are already working with us. And Jules may have already spoken to you this morning, as a matter of fact. She was talking about how busy she was this morning. So thank you guys for working with us, and we're glad that you're here with us right now. Just have a couple of quick housekeeping items before I hand it over to Damian and Jules. Many of you are going to already ask for the slide deck. It's in the attachments section of your GoToWebinar browser already. Damian also has another handout in there that you can download, and those handouts will also be available. They will be emailed to you later today, about an hour after the session is over. So you can get those two ways. A lot of you on today are looking for some HRCI or SHRM credit. You know the drill. Once we are done today, there will be a post-event survey that will pop up. Complete that survey, let me know which credit you want, and I will get those to you within the next 24 hours. If you have to bounce and go to lunch or to another meeting, you'll get a survey link about an hour after the presentation. You can fill that out as well, so you don't have to hang around afterwards if you're in a hurry to get that credit. Other than that, I will hand it over to Julie and Damon, and they will take you away. And Damon, correct me if I'm wrong, this will run a little bit longer than 60 minutes today, right?
That's correct. I think we have quite a large audience today, so with questions and chatting going on, and we might go a little bit over. So if those of you can hang on, that would be great, maybe about 10 extra minutes. If not, we'll do our best still to kind of get you through in about an hour or so.
Well, I'll say good morning. My name is Jules Gilbertson, and I work at 501c Services with Max. So welcome. We're really excited to have you today. Thrilled to be here with Damian. Have the utmost respect for him. You're in for a great ride. So buckle up and enjoy. I'm going to be kind of keeping track of your comments in that question box. So bear with me, and I apologize up front if I don't get everyone because we have such a large attendance. We're very excited about that. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Damian so he can tell you a little bit about himself, and then we will be real happy to have your engagement today. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Julie. Good morning, everyone. Excited to be here with you again. I know we've got a lot of you that were in the previous session last month, so very excited that you've decided to join us again. And I do know we have several new people engaged today, so thank you so much. My name is Damian Maldonado. I am the Chief Consultant for Maldonado and Associates. We're a bilingual, multicultural consulting team that specializes in working with expanded learning programs, after-school programs, as well as smaller to medium nonprofit organizations. We really focus on organizational development, helping you get your infrastructure built, really looking at your programs, your service areas, and then working with you to perfect that and solidify that, as well as providing staff development, things like leadership development for a lot of those organizations as well. So very excited to be here with you today to share the secret of effective leadership. And I saw in the chat box that we have quite a bit of experience in the room, so that's excellent. Always glad to hear that those of you that have been in leadership for several years are still interested in continuing to perfect our leadership skills. And then I saw that there was some brand new ones. So welcome to leadership. I think the one thing that the veterans, those of us that have been around for years, realize is that in leadership, you never arrive. So you are never done growing. You are never done, learning our skills and perfecting those, because there's always continual challenges, keeps it real, keeps it fresh for us. And, it's really just about the continual growth through experience and sessions like this. So excited to have you here today. All right, so what are we going to talk about? What is the secret to effective leadership? Well, we're going to learn about the situational leadership model. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about how important it is to identify development levels of your employees, and then how do you flex your leadership style to meet the development level needs of each of your employees. So it's really looking at ways to lead your teams with what they need, not what you need. So again, it really is about looking at what each of our individual team members need in order for them to be effective. And we'll look at how we best do that. So as Max shared, just remember the handouts are in the links available for you to download, the PowerPoint as well as situational leadership overview. I'm just curious, if you would, in the question box, just let me know if you've heard of the concept of situational leadership or are aware of the model situational leadership. Sometimes it's called SL2. So just curious, a yes or no would give us a heads up to if you've heard of this before or not.
We have a little mixed review on that. I have a lot of no's, but there are some yeses, some are familiar. And thank you, by the way, Damian, for saying in the question box. I know there was a question about the chat box, so this is a little different than like your Zoom platform. Put your responses, your questions, your input, your comments into that question box, and I hope that's helpful.
Great, so thank you. Yes, Julie, thank you. So yes, glad that some of you have heard of this model. It has been around for over 30 years, believe it or not, and it is one of the most widely used leadership models in the world. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. But to help us wrap our minds around what effective and ineffective leadership looks like, I'd like you to just very quickly think about the worst leader you've ever had. So just in your mind, without mentioning any names, think about the worst leader you've had and what did he or she do that made him the worst leader? And then how did it make you feel? So very quickly, if you would, in the question box, you can just put on there, what did he or she do? You can put disrespected, how it made me feel. Maybe it made you feel unwelcome or unheard. It could be just very, quick sentence or one-liners. So think about your worst leader. What did he or she do and how did it make you feel?
Well, I have a little input for you, Damian. Some of the examples were they didn't listen, didn't feel heard, didn't feel respected, no support, felt that their job was above the other staff, micromanaged, played favorites, mood swings, demeaning. Unfortunately, many of us have had this type of experience at some point in our career, felt dismissive, harsh in their direct communications. Let's see, didn't feel supported. There's a lot of great input and great examples of, unfortunately, what this feels like. Feeling disheartened and undervalued.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, absolutely. I think, as Julie mentioned, we've all felt this in some time in our careers, unfortunately, right? We all can go to that worst leader thought immediately, like, oh, and it really is about the impact it has on us emotionally. Those of you that were with us last month, where we talked about leading with empathy, we really covered how critical it is to building the right team culture really is around creating the feelings that you want your employees to have in your work environment. And we as leaders create that. And unfortunately, when we don't, then we create this worst leader label for ourselves because our people start to feel like we don't listen. They feel disrespected, like, we're above them, and a lot of the other comments that some of you had made. So now I'd like you to switch your thinking here. And now I'd like you to think about your best leader. Same thing. What did he or she do for you that made them your best leader? And how did that make you feel? So think about your best leader. What did he or she do and how did it make you feel?
I have some great input again. Accepted ideas. It felt great. I felt empowered, invested in learning, team approach, supported encouragement through communication, open door policy. There was actually a comment from Randy about learning a lot from a bad leader as far as what not to do. So now how do I apply that to being a best leader, a supportive and encouraging, effective listener? Of course, we want that active listening, help me grow, provided those growth opportunities, a safe space, permission to take ownership of my job, just feeling cared about and empowered because I felt respected. My leader wanted me to succeed and willing to teach me and help support my career growth. So, and excited to be part of the bigger picture. So a lot of really great feedback, and it's wonderful. There's so much of that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for sharing with us your worst and best leader examples. And the reality of it is unfortunately we've all been one or the other to our teams. And the goal today is really to look at how do we be that best leader to each of our team members, because that really is the goal of situational leadership. Because when we don't use situational leadership, when we don't flex our leadership style, we will be a worse boss to most of our staff. And it's only those that you kind of are able to match your leadership style with what that employee needs, that then they feel like you're their best leader. And a lot of you talked about the biggest leadership mistakes. So in organizations where where we've implemented situational leadership, we conduct a survey and we ask employees to tell us about what are the biggest leadership mistakes. And as you see on screen, no surprise, all of you mentioned these during your worst boss examples, right? Lack of listening is about 40% on average. People feel that you as leaders don't listen, or we don't listen. And that's a huge number. About 30% of staff feel that we're not using the right leadership styles with them. So they're either feeling that you're an absentee boss, you under supervise, you're not there for them, you either over supervise, right, aka micromanage, or you're giving direction when they don't need direction, or you're delegating to them when they don't even have the skills to do the job. And so all of this, and then the next three kind of dip there. But I mean, when we look at this, we're, almost 70% are either lack of listening or not using the right leadership style. And so this is really the goal of situational leadership, that we collaboratively work with our teams so that we can listen to them and then use the appropriate leadership style to meet the development level needs of each of our employees. So I mentioned this is one of the most widely used models in the world. And it's been around for over 35 years. And there's a reason why it's so commonly used. And it really is because as we go through this, for those of you that haven't heard of it, it really does make a lot of sense, right? That you give your teams or your staff members what they need. But unfortunately, the reality of it is it's not common practice. And the goal today is to really just kind of give you some tidbits of information to really start to help you to understand how important it is for us to flex our leadership styles and use directive behavior when we need to direct staff, learn when we can coach, learn when we can support, and learn when we can delegate. There's a lot of training sessions on there on delegating effectively to your employees. Well, ultimately we wish we could delegate to all of them because it would make our lives so much easier. But the reality of it is you can only delegate to staff that actually have the skill set. And it is our job to then help them, build and develop their competence in the areas that we have them assigned to. And so we'll walk through a little bit about how we do that. And so the very first step is that, when you use situational leadership and you're working with others, we really need to know where they're starting at in order to be able to lead them to where they need to go. And it starts with diagnosing. And the key thing here is that we're diagnosing the specific goal or task. We're not labeling a person as, oh, this person is always at development level 1. We really want to very much look at a person's development level based on the goal or task. And so how do we do that? So we diagnose development levels collaboratively. So this isn't some secret strategy that we try to figure out where our employees are at. I mean, you actually have these conversations with your employees during your one-on-one check-ins. This is when a lot of this is able to take place. And what you're looking at is a combination of 2 factors. We're looking at competence and commitment. So competence means, we're looking at that specific goal or task, and 1, do they have the skill set to do this? Or have they do they have transferable skills, right, that they've brought from other work experience, or maybe they've done a similar project and you were able to see that they were, they carried it out effectively to, the goals that you set for them. So you just make sure that they have the skill set. And then you make sure and you assess where they are on their commitment level. So are they motivated about this? Are they excited? Do they seem confident to you to get this goal or tasks done? And so we narrow these 2 things down to development level is, we look at what is the goal or task? Do they have the skills to do it? And do they have a positive or negative attitude around it? So that's a simplified way of just really trying to diagnose somebody's development level. What's the goal or task? Do they have the skill? Yes or no? And do they have a positive or negative attitude around it? And when we look at these development levels, as you see, and hopefully you have the handout available to you as well to glance at, there's 4 development levels in this model. And again, remembering that it's goal or task specific. So when we look at development level 1, D1, we look at somebody who has low competence, so they have a low skill set, but they're very excited to do the job. And this is considered or called, labeled in situational leadership as an enthusiastic beginner. Who is this most likely reminiscent of? If you would just put it in the question box. What kind of employee would this be? Would you see this kind of development level at? Someone with a low skill set, but high commitment. They're very excited. They have a positive attitude. They're ready to go. They're an enthusiastic beginner. Who would you say this is common for?
Well, we have a lot of comments that hit it on the head here. So new hires or entry-level employees, maybe someone fresh out of college, which is so true, right? You have to start somewhere. Younger, potentially inexperienced, a lot of the same comments. Someone trying to climb the ladder, maybe they've been there and they want to have some growth opportunity, and so they may not have the skill set, but they're really jazzed to jump in there. Maybe somebody new to the team.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. You guys hit the nail on the head. So it's very common for new staff, new hires, fresh out of college, people that are just really excited to be starting something new, but yet they don't have the skill set, right? They're ready to go and they're like, great, I'm ready to jump in. You're like, okay, great. Grab this out of the, the file cabinet. They're like,
Mhm.
awesome. Where's the file cabinet?
Right,
They
right.
need to know exactly, which way to go. And so I'd like you to start thinking about what kind of things do people at each of these levels need, because that's what we're really going for here. So
Mhm.
once somebody, let's say the hire starts working for you and there's, they have a little bit of it, start getting a little bit of experience under their wing, and suddenly they move on to development level 2. But look what happens here. Suddenly their competence, their commitment goes from high to low, and their competence goes up a little bit. From low, either stays the same or moves to some competence. And this person is labeled as a disillusioned learner. What do you think starts to happen here? Why do people go from being really excited, excited to be there, excited to jump on in, to all of a sudden, boom, like, oh, my motivation level dips? What do you think happens here? What happens for them to get disillusioned?
I have an excellent comment from one of our attendees. I love this. This happens with folks who have worked for a company for a long time. And then when management changes, that process can start all over again. Also, with a change in leadership, the learning curve is longer than they thought it might be. So maybe their commitment's a little less. Maybe they feed into negative talk, or there's people in their work group or team that is not encouraging. A lack of engagement from the supervisor and a lack of mentorship, influenced by how they're treated. Maybe they're passed over for promotions or opportunities that they would like. Maybe lack of environmental support. I mean, having the right tools, right, and the right training.
Absolutely.
Another one that's very real, cost of living raises with no raises has a lot to do with it too. So sometimes, okay, here's this position, but maybe you're not being compensated by that very much. And then one of my personal pet peeves, which is gossip in the workplace, and those kinds of things make it really difficult, right? So they might be so jazzed coming in, and then they experience this type of culture environment.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yes. I mean, you guys, again, all very accurate. And unfortunately, a lot of those things, we as leaders do have some sort of responsibility in handling, right? If our cultures are kind of contributing to this disillusionment, right? Taking a step back for us as leaders to look at what's going on, where I have these people come in very excited and suddenly they start to dip. I think one of you also mentioned, like, you change assignments, right? So they thought they were doing, they were going to be, for example, working in the office and just handling, administrative skills. And then suddenly, oh, guess what? We need you out on the field. We need you out with kids. We need you out with the clients or the customers. And suddenly their goal, the goal or task changes. And so, they take a dip back to their their skill set around that may not be as high. But then their commitment level really dips because that's not something they were either looking forward to or was communicated to them.
There
And
were a
so,
couple.
think.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There were a couple others I thought worth mentioning, Damian, if it's okay. Um, there was a couple comments about favoritism and then hazing, right? So perhaps there's other long-term employees or seasoned employees that make that new employee feel bad or feel threatened or humiliated. That's huge too.
Absolutely, yes, yes, thank you. All those are absolutely valid. So Again, thinking about then what would an employee who falls into this bucket, disillusioned learner, need from you? And start thinking about what is different than what they needed from you when they were an enthusiastic beginner. And so, as we continue to match our leadership styles, the goal is that their development level continues to increase. So, the normal development process is that their skill set will continue to increase. As you see here now, the goal is to move them from that disillusioned learner by giving them the right support and skills and tools that some of you mentioned that they need to then continue to build their skill set, and now it goes up moderate to high competence, but now their commitment level, their attitude around this specific goal or task starts to wander. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. And this person we call capable but cautious. So something happens here that then makes them feel caution around how they're moving forward. But their skill has improved. So they're getting it, they're doing well. What do you think happens in development level 3 to start having people's commitment wander or waver? So they built those skill sets, so they're capable, but now they start to be a little cautious. What do you think is happening here with this person?
Well, Damian, some of the input included, not feeling valued, perhaps, or not feeling appreciated. They're maybe thinking all of a sudden, gosh, this is really a lot harder and a lot more work than I thought, and I don't really think I'm getting paid enough.
Yeah.
Some trust might be broken, right? Burnout. Yes. Maybe they feel micromanaged. Perhaps it's not that hard, and boredom sets in. Receiving mixed messages from their supervisor in respect to their ideas and their thoughts. Maybe not feeling comfortable with upper management. Maybe there's a lack of communication. And perhaps just feeling that all this work is dumped on them. I've seen it happen where there's been a position open for a while, or it's a newly created position, and bam, here comes all this work.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, so all of those absolutely very valid. This person really becomes, they have the skill set, and as you just mentioned, Julie, then we just start pouring on the workload. And again, they start to like, whoa, wait a second here. I know I'm able to do this, but now it's doubled. The work has doubled. Or, a simple example is, let's say you've been doing presentations with your team in team meetings. Frequently you've gotten good at kind of doing those meetings, doing those presentations. And then suddenly your boss says, hey, I need you to present to the board of directors. And suddenly it's like, it's like, whoa, wait a second. I'm really comfortable with my team, but now you want me to present to the board of directors, and that's where that variable commitment, starts to maybe dip and go up. And so think about what somebody in this development level stage would need from you as their leader, right? Which would be very different than what they would need with you being an enthusiastic beginner. And so once you start matching that leadership style, the goal is that then their commitment level stays up and their skill set, competence level stays up as well. And so this person, this bucket here is called the self-reliant achiever. And this really is the goal that we help each of our employees develop through this developmental level of these 4 stages. And the key thing to remember, it's goal or task specific. So you will always have the same person who might be a self-reliant achiever on filling out Excel documents and helping you with reports. But the minute you assign them to give a presentation to the board of directors, boom, they maybe go back to a disillusioned learner, because that skill set may not be as strong. So to help us or help you wrap your mind around this, very quickly, and I'd like you to just think about, this is goal or task specific. And so we'll do a very quick virtual scattergram here. So I'm going to read you some scenarios, and I'd like you to just in the question box, just diagnose yourself. Are you that D1 enthusiastic beginner, D2 disillusioned learner, D3 capable but cautious, or D4 a self-reliant achiever? And so the questions, again, you need to ask yourself is, what is the goal? What am I being asked to do? What is my skill set around it? And am I committed to it? And what's my attitude around it? So here we go. First one, diagnose yourself in being able to run and finish a half marathon in the next 3 weeks. So your assignment is to run a marathon and finish in the next 3 months. What would you say your development level is? Do you have the skill set? Yes or no? Is it high or low? And what's your attitude level around it? Are you committed to it?
Well, I can tell you, we have a lot of D1s, but we must have some with good athletic ability out there. And we actually have 1-4 because he's a runner. Congratulations. Yeah. We have a few in the D3 and some that are kind of moving back and forth. And so some very committed to it and physically prepared and ready, and others that are saying, yeah, that's going to take me a while.
Right. So, yeah. Excellent. So yes, we've got a lot of enthusiastic beginners. So, yes. Thinking about what would you need then in order for you to be able to run and finish a half marathon in the next 3 months? What would you need from a leader, from a coach, somebody who's going to help you go there, versus what that person who's an avid runner, who's a self-reliant achiever, who's the D4, what would they need? And if I use the same approach with, giving you an actual step-by-step, you know what, let's start today by walking around the block. Tomorrow we'll walk 2 blocks. If I gave that same assignment to my self-reliant achiever who's running marathons already on his own, what do you think that would do to that person?
Well, and a lot of folks have said they would need encouragement and guidance, and they would need a trainer with commitment, absolutely. Right? Somebody that's patient and has a lot of, enthusiasm and help them reach the goal, right? By holding them accountable, which I love that. Lots of training. Yeah, just having someone there to step it up. And I know that, sometimes when you have a goal like that, it just, almost always, right? It helps if you have a cheerleader at your side and someone that's going to both encourage you and secondly, keep you accountable. A self-reliant person might see the guidance at best and might find it offensive at worst. So it depends on each person, right? Some people might want that and some might feel like they need to just do it on their own.
Absolutely. Yes. So excellent. What you're starting to identify is that there are different needs depending on the development level on the goal or task. So, that self-reliant achiever person would probably be quite offended if I gave them and started them with walking around the block, right? But those D1, you would be very excited, right? So think back to the best boss, worst boss examples. Suddenly, I'm a best boss to my D1s because I'm using a very directive approach, but for my D4s, suddenly they're starting to feel like, whoa, wait a second here, they're feeling belittled, like, wait a second, why doesn't this guy just let me go with it? I know what to do, I know how to do it. Right. So, all right, one more. Oops, how many, diagnose yourself on being able to cook a dinner for a party of 12 totally on your own.
To see
So
how many cooks we have in the kitchen here.
exactly, what is your self-diagnose yourself? What's your development level? The goal is to cook for a dinner party of 12, totally on your own.
We have a lot of great cooks in the kitchen here. We have a lot of D4s, D3s.
All right,
Um, I,
excellent.
I have to share a comment from the last one too, and maybe it doesn't apply to this one, but it's still relevant. I love this input we're getting. This one of the inputs that we got was, I would need a new job. I'd be totally overwhelmed and wonder what I'm doing here. So perhaps there might be someone, if you gave this cooking job to, that would feel that way. We have a lot of folks though saying they love cooking and baking and they do this already. So awesome.
Excellent. Well, we clearly don't have a lot of runners, but we have a lot of chefs. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's
I
awesome.
love it.
And so again, thinking through, right? So suddenly, those of you that were a D1 on the goal or task of running, when the goal changed to cooking for a dinner party, you are at a D4, right? Because you've done it before, you have transferable skills. So again, thinking through, what would you need from your boss that's different than what you needed from them when you were having them, they were having you run a marathon, right? If I use that same approach for this different goal now, meaning that if I said, okay, great, let me give you a recipe, and this is a measuring cup, right? This little lines on the measuring cup, you know, you would suddenly be like, oh my gosh, just let me do it. Even though that's exactly what you needed when you were a D1 in the goal of running.
Sure.
So, you know, again, common sense, not common practice, right? We unfortunately just tend to use one default style with our leadership approaches. And so the reality of it is that we're using whatever we're comfortable with in our approach. So if I tend to be a pretty directive person, I'm probably going to be directive most of the time with all of my team members. And if I'm doing that, it's going to work well with some, but not all. Or if I'm on the opposite, if I tend to be just a very supportive boss who's really just kind of, I could be very positive, I could be a cheerleader, but if somebody comes in and they're brand new and I'm like, okay, congratulations, you go Tiger, go get him. They're like, hey, well, thank you, but where do I go? How do I go do this? Right? It still doesn't feel supportive because that's not what they need from you. And
Right.
so,
Where do I start, right? Well, there's a couple great comments about that, Damian. I have just what you said. I'd need a cheerleader from my boss, and a boss that would also let me take the lead. I love this: eat to run or run to eat. And then we have a really good point in relationship to you talking about situational leadership, is that not all D1s need hand-holding approach. They might, it's really going to depend on their learning style. And you've touched on that. So thank you for the input, everyone.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really, you know, it could vary. And what we'll see right now is, you know, now that you understand a little bit about development levels, and again, these are not, you know, nothing done in secret. This is during one-on-one meetings. Hey, you know, I've got this new project. I'd like to assign you to it. You know, it's very similar to what you had done prior in ABCD. You know, I'd like to talk about it with you. You know, how, you know, what do you think your skill set is around this? Oh, great. Well, if it's the same as the other one, I think I'd be good. All right. Is this something you're interested in doing? Oh yeah, you know, bring it on. I'm excited. I'm ready to try something different. Awesome. Then you know exactly what leadership style to use, and you've sought their input. And so the second skill of a situational leader is matching, flexing that leadership style to match the development level needs of that team member on the specific goal or task. And so why do we want to match? So the reality of it is, as I mentioned, most of us just use one leadership style naturally. That is our default. 54% of us use one style all the time. And so, again, when I'm at different development levels on a specific goal or task, that leadership style may work for me depending on that goal or task, but won't always work for me. And then it starts to drop from there. Only about 30% use two styles naturally. And then if, you know, the next three, very few of us use three or more styles. And so the goal with situational leadership is to really help you be comfortable in flexing your leadership style between these four approaches. And it takes work and it takes practice. And once you start to use this language with your teams, you know, once organizations implement situational leadership or this approach, or even in your teams, it really is just about clarifying the definitions. And it's simply just that one-page handout, right? Where you just walk them through. Look, I'll occasionally ask you where you're at on each of these goals or tasks. And what I had done, you know, when I was leading a team, I actually, I had task lists for everybody that I would meet with them either weekly or biweekly. And their task list was just very quickly, you know, what's the project you're working on? What support do you need with me? What do you need me to know? And then what's your development level on it? So I'd have them self-diagnose themselves. So during one-on-one meetings, when they came in with me or sent me their task sheet prior to our meeting, I'd glance at that, and that would be the first one or two items we'd talk about. Because if they need support from me, if they need more direction from me, if I see they're a D1 or a D2, then I want to hone in on those because the D3, the D4, they've got the skills. They're ready to run with it. It may be a very quick check-in like, hey, how can I support you in this to make you feel more comfortable in, because you can do it. Versus when they're a D1 or a D2, right? You know, tell me a little bit about why you're disillusioned around this. Well, I'm running into problems, challenges. All right, well, let me, you know, then you know exactly how you need to support them. So we need to be able to flex our leadership styles to match the development level needs. So here now you see the complete model. So down below you have the development levels, which we just covered. And of course, development level 1 is matched with leadership style 1, and that's directive. And the leadership behaviors that you want to use with directing is high direct and low supportive behavior. Because at this point, you know, they're already excited about doing the job. So they don't really need you to be as much of a cheerleader for them as maybe, let's say, somebody who who's low commit, who has a low commitment. But they do need very clear directions. And so this is what directive would look like. You know, then ultimately, you know, you move on to coaching, supporting, and delegating, and we'll cover each one of these in a moment. But there's a specific intention between each leadership style, meaning that it's based on the development level needs of the person. So the intention with using directive leadership style is to help build their competence. So you're building their skill set because they've already have the high motivation around it. When you go up to coaching, where you're using a high directive and high support behavior, is you're really kind of trying to energize them and maybe do some reteach when they start to make mistakes, right? Which is sometimes why they have that low commitment. It starts to wander. You really want to continue to be directive with them, but also now you start using more supportive behavior, coaching, because they need a lot more of that, right? They're not as motivated. Then you move on to the left-hand side of the model, and this, you notice that it becomes much more supportive behaviors. So as a leader, when they move into style 3, development level 3, style 3 of leadership is supporting. You're really looking at building their confidence in their competence. So they already have the skills. You're trying to help them have that confidence in themselves to run forward. So you see that the support is high now and the directive is much lower. So you start using less direction. It doesn't mean you still don't direct them. It just means you use a lot less because they already have the skill set. And then lastly, they move into that, self-reliant achiever, high competence, high commitment, and you use delegating. So this is the group of people that you use low support because they have the skills, and low directed behavior because they're already committed about it. So these are the people that maybe you just check in with them on, hey, how are you doing on this project? Oh, I'm doing great. I've got this, blah, blah, blah. Everything's going great. Then your question is, anything I can do for you? Anything you need me to support you on? Nope, I'm good. I got it. Awesome. Run with it. Get out of their way. And so this is the time that, the goal is that ultimately we move everybody along the continuum. The reality of it is not everybody gets there, because if their goals or tasks are constantly changing, maybe they just don't quite have the capacity to do that skill. And then, that project or that goal or task. And so your decision becomes, how do I then support them? Am I fine with them staying in this D2, low competence, low commitment, or do I need to reassign them the goal or task? And so these become questions you start to generalize. Now, when we look at style 1 of directive leadership style, the intention is to help build their competence. So how do we do that? How do we use that directive behavior? For some of us, this comes very naturally. For others, it's difficult if we tend to be much more collaborative, much more supportive, right? Because we need to, again, acknowledge the skills that they do have, either transferable or that they've done it before, and then their commitment level. I need to be clear on the direction, and we need to have frequent check-ins. So let's watch a very quick video that'll highlight this in action.
Baby, wash my stuff, all right? Okay.
Well, they still look at coming off the ice. They'll be terrified till they realize he's a marshmallow. Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane.
Give me a minute, Bert.
We're in the middle of practice, Leanne.
You can thank me later. Michael, do you remember when we first met and we went to that horrible part of town to buy you those dreadful clothes? And I was a little bit scared and you told me not to worry about it because you had my back. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And if anyone tried to get to me, you would have stopped them, right? And when you and SJ were in that car wreck, what did you do to the airbag?
Stopped it.
You stopped it. You stopped it. This team is your family, Michael. You have to protect them from those guys, okay? Listen. Tony here's your quarterback, all right? You protect his blind side. When you look at him, you think of me, how you have my back, how you have his, okay? All right, Tony, go back. All right. Uncle Lumpy here is your tailback. When you look at him, you think of SJ and how you've never let anyone or anything hurt him. You understand me? All right. Go back. Got it?
What about Collins and Mr. Tony?
Fine. They can be on the team too. Are you going to protect the family, Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
Good boy. Let's go have some fun. Shit.
All right. Was the sound okay, Julie?
Oh, it's a little bit off, but you could still hear what they were saying. It's a great example. It's a great, great movie. So I think everybody could figure it out.
Okay,
It was
great.
breaking up. It was breaking up a little bit.
Got it. Okay, maybe I wanted to see if I needed to share the sound here, but I don't see a button for that. Okay, so what did you see in terms of the directive behavior? What did you see or hear that indicated this style of leadership was being used? What did you see, Leanne, from the blind side? Sandra Bullock, sorry. With her son, what type of style? Well, it was directive style, but what indicated that for you?
Well, we're seeing coaching gave specific expectations and direction, identifying transferable skills, which is great. Pumping
Bingo.
him up and re-energizing him. She made it accessible and easy to understand. Yeah, some folks said the clip wasn't totally clear, but delegating what she needed him to do, and she told him things and didn't ask for his input, both like directing and coaching.
Yes, very good. All excellent points. So yes, the style was very much directing. Yes, she did move into the coaching style with giving him that high support, energizing him based on some of the clarifying questions she was asking. So it was really important that she clarified with him, like, you got that, Michael? Yes, okay, right? And so, this was just very indicative of a directive leadership style. And it just seemed, occasionally there was that support, but not much. So thanks for commenting on that. All right, next one is moving into that coaching leadership style. So if we're re-energizing and reteaching, we're doing this by exploring their concerns and then encouraging them. So, talking through them, what is making them be that disillusioned learner around this specific goal or task. Sometimes we need to clarify the goal, explain the why. We need to redirect and reteach and involve them in the problem solving, right? Sometimes asking them, hey, what are your thoughts around how we can solve this barrier for you? And asking them for input, because again, it's that you also need to move into that high support here because you're re-energizing. So let's take a look at this video clip.
Check your battery. Give me an A, please. Okay. Try this. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself in a room full of people, lots of silverware, people dropping stuff, talking loud, drunk, women with trays going, what are you gonna have? Your voice has to carry over the din. You have to get up over all of that to be heard in the back of the room where I'm sitting, listening, straining to hear. Okay? Keep that in your mind when we do that. We call that an A with an attitude.
All right, what did you see or hear here to indicate this was coaching behavior? What was different from the style 1 approach that we just saw in the blind side versus this coaching approach that we saw in the Sister Act?
I think we're having a little bit of issues with the audio, so they're having a little trouble with that. But one of the great pieces of input was using scenarios to help clarify the how-to, right? And then encouragement and cheerleading, and just making it comfortable and fun, confidence, and it was a confidence booster and reassuring. Just, being able to have a visual, close your eyes and think about this. So yeah, some very good takeaways on that. And we apologize about the audio.
Yeah, my apologies. I don't know, Mac, if there's a button I need to select to share my computer audio? I'm not sure. But yes, you are all right on target here. So that very high support, right? She was very positive. She was smiling. She was reminding her of, remember, what she did before, how she yelled out that song, that voice. So again, just showing you the differences in the approaches to that leadership style. And now when we move over, what you just saw, style 1 and style 2 of leadership, directing and coaching, remember those are directive leadership style behaviors. So with either one of those, you're going to use very high direction, and the only thing that changes here is the level of support you provide. When we move over to the left-hand side, once they start moving over into D3, D4, their skill set has already developed. And so now you start to use much less directive behavior and much more support. Style 3, you're building confidence in their competence. And so here you start to engage them much more in what do they need from you? Input about the what and how, because they know they have the skill set. We're listening and encouraging them to help them build their confidence level in their commitment, in their competence. And we're doing much more listening and encouraging. And we continue to facilitate specific problem solving by asking open-ended questions, right? So we really want to start to move them into this place where they start to understand that they do have the skills. And let's watch another video here about what that style looks like.
You guys are superhuman. What you endure just to be here, to get a shot at this, the kind of privilege that someone like me takes for granted. There's nothing you can't do with that kind of strength, with that kind of heart. Kids have the biggest hearts I've ever seen. Go run your race. Promise you, the captain. Coach. Want to call it? Uno, dos, tres. Big five.
All right, another great movie here, McFarland. So what did you see here? What kind of leadership style in terms of specifics did you see or hear that indicates it was a very high supportive behavior?
We have encouragement and showing faith in the team, showing pride in their abilities. He really touched their hearts and showed them how much he really cares. And I definitely took that away too. Loved it. Confidence building.
Yes.
Really, I think too, meeting them on their level, their style, and just trying to encourage them and help them to not give up, right? Go in with a positive spirit.
Absolutely. Yes. Bingo. All right. Responses there. Did you hear him at all mention anything about how to go run that race? You know, he really didn't give them specifics, right? Because they knew they already had the skill set. They'd been running, they'd been racing. You know, they just hit a snag where they were starting to feel a little insecure about their own skill sets because some other teams had better shoes than they did, had better uniforms than they did. So really all they needed was support. They have the skill set. They've been doing it already. So this is where you really just see that supportive behavior really kick in. And one more here. Our last video here to see what delegating actually looks like it values contribution because they have the skill set and they're already very excited and positive around doing what they do, right? These are your high achievers. You just pretty much, you still don't leave them alone. You still need to acknowledge their expertise, thank them for what they do, support their autonomy, meaning that you move out of their way, you know, when they don't need you because they're able to run with it. And you continue to invite innovation and ongoing learning. These are the people that maybe you use to help you work with somebody who might be at a D1 level, right? The key thing about situational leadership is that it doesn't always have to be you, the leader, that provides what's needed. We can pair them up with other high-performing employees to help them get the direction they need or the support they need. But again, it does take us to have that conversation with them and to do the pairing if we have a team member who we can, you know, lean on.
Absolutely.
So let's take at what this looks like from another great movie.
Lead guitar. Stack pack. Take a seat. On bass, Posh Spice. On keyboards, Mr. Cool. And on drums, Spazzy McGee. Okay. Blondie, phrase face, you're singing backup. All right. Tough guy, shortstop, fancy pants, get over here. You guys are on security detail. Your job is to make sure no one outside this room knows what we're doing in here. The future of the band depends on you. Okay, your first mission, soundproofing this room. Get on it.
Can I be the band stylist instead?
Of course you can, fancy pants. Okay. Carrot Top, Roadrunner, Turkey Sub. We are gonna have a lot of equipment. We're talking amps, electric guitars, maybe even lasers and smoke machines. Now your job is to master the transportation and operation of this technology. Seriously, without a first-rate roadie crew, we'll never have a psychedelic show. And I can't live with that, okay? I'm counting on you. Get going. Go. All right. You three, groupies. And your job is simple. Just worship the band. And you're gonna be making hats. You're gonna be making t-shirts, all kinds of merchandise, which leads me to your first assignment, naming the band. All right, sit down.
All right, what did you see or hear in this video to indicate it was delegating leadership behavior?
Kind of an overview on what to do and let them just do it. He had faith and trust in them that they knew what to do. He told them what, and then that's it. Dismissed them, go take care of it. Tasks were handed out. He made those assignments and just let them go, right? He made it sound exciting, like every job was important and every person had an important role. And he also looked at their skill sets and tried to match that based on their skill sets.
Yes, that is exactly the key here, is that he was delegating to each of these students or group of students based on their skill set. So he knew enough to know where and how to assign these kids based on the goal or task. And, you know, again, what you saw here was that very high clarifying of the goal or task, and then just let them run with it. So this, you know, was kind of indicative of what you would want to use when you want to delegate to staff, because they have the skill set and they're excited about doing it. And so that really is ultimately the goal of situational leadership, is to use those leadership styles with the appropriate development level so that you match what the employee needs and you're able to flex your leadership style accordingly. Because as we said, when you don't, you either become that worst boss to somebody and that best boss to some. And the goal that we're going for is to be that best boss for every employee that we lead. And so the secret to effective leadership is to match your leadership style. Because when you don't match, you're going to either over supervise, which is that micromanager, or you're going to under supervise. And so again, you will become that worst boss to somebody because you're not matching your leadership style. And we really, really ultimately want to match to their development levels so that we don't over supervise or under supervise. And during those one-on-one sessions that we have with each of our team members, that's where we do the listening, and we seek their input on what they need from us. And as we started, it's remembering, what does each of our team members need from you, not what you need from them. Because in essence, it's really about when you clarify the goal, you're letting them know what you need. And then it's about giving them what they need to be effective.
Right. And
So
there was a comment that was right on with this, which was ultimately you're going to lose good people if you don't match that.
Absolutely. Yes. If they feel like you're an absentee boss and you're not there for them, right? You're under supervising, or if you're doing the micromanaging, right? If you're using just directive behavior across the board, and no matter what their development level is, then absolutely they're going to feel smothered and overwhelmed. And so, remember, the goal is to become the best boss to each of our team members. And so with that, if there are any questions we can answer, but I thank you for holding on here as we went over about 10 minutes here. So we'd just love to hear one thing you liked, learned, or surprised you today in terms of today's session. One thing you liked, learned, or surprised you.
I loved hearing the sentence, lead with what they need, not what you need. I think that put that in perspective really well. The statistics on natural ability. I love this training. I knew a little about situational leadership, but to learn more was great, and I'm glad I was able to attend. I like the breakdown. There's so many comments. I like the reminder of the value and matching things. Development level is task specific. They kind of learned where they fell, right? Like the structure of the levels as a guide. The value of situational leadership. The movie examples were fun. Everyone has value, so tap into what that is, right? And lead with what they need. I love that. The infographic, it's a good reminder to have for a daily reminder. And again, more loving the movie clips. How to listen better and support my teachers and staff. Thank you. That's great. We get so busy in that day to day, and I know when I worked in the nonprofit world, it's hard to keep up with everything. So really paying attention and being engaged with your teams is so key. Being reminded that everyone typically needs different types of supervision, and meeting them where they are. Right. I'm going to use this model moving forward. That's awesome. I realized I'm not alone in this situation. It gave me moral strength. So many thanks, Damian. Gain new perspectives. This is the equality of leading. I love providing what each employee needs.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of really great things people took away, and it's always exciting when you can attend leadership training and feel like jazzed to go back and implement some of these new tools. Let's see. Yes, the recording will be available, and the slides, once you do the survey, we will also be emailing that to you in the next few days. So no worries there. Sorry about the audio, but I think, we got the gist of them, and, just a really great training, a lot of positive feedback, Damian. So thank you so much.
Well, Thank you all so much. Of course, when you participate, it makes it a lot more engaging for us as well. So thank you for all those comments and really staying engaged with us as we went through this session. There's a lot of resources out there on situational leadership, so you can just Google that, and there's great little cheat sheets that you can share with your teams. If you really want to implement this, we're also available if you need help or are considering implementing some sort of a new leadership model or approach. Situational leadership is definitely one to consider. It works extremely well. I've seen it work across multiple industries, healthcare, education, even law enforcement. So it really is a great model.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you all so much for your attendance today. And if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know.
We loved having you. Thank you for all your engagement. It made it a lot of fun for us. And thank you, Damian, as always. Love working with you and appreciate your expertise, your approach, and your time today, as well as all our attendees and their busy nonprofit work. Thanks for your great work out there in the community. And I hope you'll join us again real soon.
Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.